Hey there, and welcome to the ultimate guide to using the pen tool in Photoshop. Today we're going to show you guys about how to use the pen tool, some cases when actually using the pen tool is really helpful, when to not use the pen tool, and basically try to answer any questions you guys might have about the pen tool. It's one of the more complicated tools to use in Photoshop and get a hang of, but in my opinion it's one of the more important tools to really know how to use well. So this is why we're making a separate video here, and we hope you guys enjoy this short little video on the pen tool. So the pen tool is located right over here. You can hit P for the pen tool, or you can click right over here on the pen tool. And if I click and hold there, you'll see we have pen tool, freeform, pen tool, add anchor point, pen tool, delete anchor point tool, and convert point tool. Now, the pen tool is the main tool we're going to be using. The freeform pen tool is really, it's not as useful for most of what we're going to be doing, because the pen tool will allow you to create really accurate curves and selections and things like that. Freeform is not so much. This is not very different from something like the regular lasso tool. Okay, and then you have your add, delete, and convert the anchor points, and those are actually just keyboard shortcuts within the pen tool itself. So within the pen tool you get access to these three tools as well, so I'm going to show you guys how to do that as well. So we have our pen tool. There are a couple options here on the top. We have a peanut dash apparently. That's just the standard how it looks, and that's how we'll keep it. Okay, we have a shape and a path. Now a shape is going to actually fill in whatever path you make with a color or a gradient or something like that. We're going to keep this on path because if we were an illustrator and we were trying to make cartoons or something, shape might be appropriate, but path is much better for making selections in Photoshop. Okay, so all these guys you can see, like exclude overlapping shapes, things like that. I would keep all these on your default selections, and I'm going to show you guys basically how to combine paths and things like that. Rubber band, we want to keep that off, and we want to go to auto add / delete. So all those options are pretty much default, just like that, and that's how I would leave everything for the pen tool. Okay, so here's how the pen tool works. It's a really simple tool. Basically, if you click on one point, it makes a little point. If you click another point, it's going to make another point. Click again, and it'll do the same thing. Now, it connects each of these points together. Alright, we're going to go to the end, and you'll see a little circle right next to the pen tool icon. See right there? It pops up, and we're going to click there, and that's going to finish our pen path. Okay, so we've got a pen path now, and basically this is what we're going to be using as a basis for making selections and other things in Photoshop. So the main use of using the pen tool in Photoshop is going to be for making selections, at least in photography. If you're going to be doing graphic design, you can use it to make logos and things like that, but as far as photography is concerned, it's going to be really useful for making selections. So we've got this pen path here, and it can be a little confusing because we're on layer 1, but paths actually have nothing to do with layers. They're not selections, they're their own thing, and they're located here in the path dialog. You can go to Window and down to Paths to access this, or you can just click on the path dialog. So we can see what we've got is a work path right now, and anytime you create a new path, it's going to be a work path. So I'm going to start creating a path here, and you can see again it's saved under the same work path. So now my work path, you can see on our little thumbnail there, contains both of these separate paths. So that's our work path. Now the great thing about paths and how they differ from things like the polygonal lasso tool is they stay, and you can also save these paths. So saving these paths are really simple. Just double click right here where it says work path, and we'll just call this path 1, which is going to come up by default, and hit enter. So now this is path 1 and this is saved. So let's go back to our pen tool, and I'm going to show you some of the great uses of these actual paths. So with our pen tool, the biggest advantage of using these paths is that you can change any of these points after the fact. So that's going to come with holding down the control or the command key. So control or command is going to give you this white arrow. I can click outside of the path, and you can see my anchor points go away. If I click on my path, you can see my anchor points are now visible again. If I click outside, and then on this one, you can see that's basically how you select paths. And I'm holding the control or the command key, and that turns my pen path into that white arrow there. Okay, so let's go ahead and click here, and you can see we've got open points here on my path. They're open, meaning that they're not filled in. You can see, like if I click on that, that's filled in now, so that's like a closed point or a selected point. I can hit control or command and select a few of those. Okay, now I'm going to click on here, and basically with this point, again holding control or command, I can click on that point, and now I can move it around. I can click on this point here, and I can move that around. I can click on a line, and I can move a whole line around, just like this. There we go. That started making a curve, which I'm going to get to in just a little bit. Alright. There we go, and pulling these and pushing these around. Now if I hold shift and click on a couple of these points, there we go, and now I can move all three of those points at the same time. So you can see these other 2 points are going to stay. You can also hold shift and make like a selection like this, and then move those points around. So you can move all the points in a selection. So holding shift and clicking and dragging will allow you to make a couple different points, a selection. Very cool. So this is basically using the reference points here on a pen path, and you can see you can move them at any point in time. Now, let's say we get to a shape that we actually like, and we want to turn this into a selection. Super easy. Just right-click inside of your selection. Alright, there we go. Make sure you have your pen path active, and then right-click inside, and go to Make Selection. There we go. You can choose to feather the radius or not, and hit OK, and it's going to actually make the path you clicked inside a selection. I'm going to hit Deselect, and now you can see my paths are gone. Because here on our paths, we actually have to click right here on our path, and that's going to actually let us see what we got. So if you want to make your paths invisible, just click outside of their paths, back on our paths, and they're back visible again. So these paths don't affect your image in any way. Like they still exist right here, they're just not visible. So paths, again, we're going to be using these basically to make selections. So you can right click inside of here and say Make Selection, hit OK, and those will both be selected now. You can click right over here. You can right click on here and say Make Selection, okay, and deselect. Click right there, and you can click on this button right here, and that will make them a selection as well. So there are many ways to make these selections. Now let's say you start off with a path like this that is using all sharp corners, and you want to add some curves. You can hold the Alt or the Option key and go up to any of these points, and that's going to give you the Convert Anchor Point tool. So holding Alt or Option, and if I click on one of these points and drag, it's going to turn that sharp point into a curve. Now by default, you're always going to have these two lines be basically, it's going to be a straight line. These two lines are going to be perpendicular or parallel, or it's just going to create one parallel line. What that's doing is creating a tangent here. So this curve here is going to end and automatically start into the next curve. So you get a very nice smooth curve. Let's go ahead and hold Alt or Option again and click here and do the same thing. So we can see really easily I'm able to turn basically, you know, what was, there we go, let's bring that down, what was just a bunch of angles into something that's a nice smooth shape. If I want to turn these back into angles, hold the Alt or the Option key, and instead of clicking and dragging, just click on any of these points, and I'll click right there, and I'll click right there, and you can see they're just being turned right back into those shapes. There we go. Now another great thing you can do is I'm going to hold Alt or Option and bring these two back. So let's say I'd like to alter this curve now. If I hold Control, I can click on any one of these points and I can move that around. Holding Control again, I can click on the actual curve and I can just push and pull the actual curve if you prefer to do that. I can click on this guy and do the same thing, and I can click on this and do the same thing. Again, all this is holding Control. Now if I hold down Alt or Option, I can click on this and I'm going to break that tendency. So now I have this curve comes into a sharp point and then comes out to another curve. So it's a really great way to control your curves a little bit more. So I can bring in, you know, I can create these nice harsh shapes and things like that. Okay, so this is basically an introduction to how the path tool actually works. Let's go ahead and delete those. Just click on the delete path 1, and then to create a new path, all you have to do is start creating again. So when I'm creating a shape, basically I like to click and then drag out in the direction of my next point. So you can see I'm clicking and dragging here in the direction of our next points. Go ahead and end it up when we got a shape like that. So it's a relatively simple tool to use. Now I'm going to show you guys how to use it now that we actually know. I'm going to just see if I can create a similar shape on the inside. It's a really cool tool. It allows you to just create really nice flowing shapes. There we go. And then edit them after the fact. There we go. Let's just click here. So you can create, you know, really nice logos and things like that using the pen path. It's a very, very useful tool. There we go. So, you know, whatever, you could make this into a nice logo or just an interesting shape for a brochure or something. I don't know, whatever you want. I'm not a brochure designer, but or a piece of furniture rendering. I don't know. So anyway, just kind of showing that, you know, being able to move those is going to allow me to actually like create something that looks like it'd be about the same width around both of those. Okay, so that's just kind of fooling around and showing you guys the basics of the pen tool. Now let's go ahead and delete that path. We're going to delete that. Let's go back to our layers, and I'm going to bring up this picture of a Lamborghini Aventador, which is totally badass, and we're going to show you how to trace this car and cut it out from its background. Alright, the attribution for the photo is in the folder that you downloaded, because I did not take this picture. Okay, so we're going to show you basically how to use the pen tool to cut this car out of its background. And I'm just going to go relatively slowly and basically go all around this car, and you'll be able to see kind of what's going on. So whenever starting with the pen path tool, I like to start at like an angle or an intersection. So this is like, you know, the tires coming up here, and it's going to enter into the car here. So we're going to click right there, and I'm just going to click and drag just a little bit out in that direction. Now let's just zoom in a little bit more so we can see kind of what we got going on. It's a good idea whenever you're cutting something out to err on the side of like slightly inside of the object. In other words, I don't want to err outside of the object, I'd rather err inside of the object just a little bit. Okay, so we've got a nice curve going here, just like a very simple curve. Now we need to come back out this way, so I'm going to hold Alt or Option, bring this point out, click here, and then up to there. Okay, and then same thing here, click, and we're going to drag, and that's going to create a little curve. Now if you don't like it, just hit Undo, Command Z. Okay, create a smaller curve just like this, and click and drag a point up like that, and up like this. There we go. Now I can hold down the Control or Command key and move any of these points around if they're not perfect. And I'm not going to spend an hour cutting this thing out and making exactly perfect, but one of the key tools or key kind of like goals with the pen tool is to use as few of these points as possible. I don't want to like click, you know, a bunch of times like that. Like that's not going to help at all, right? Well, I want to use as few as possible. And the goal here is to see if you can find like a big sweeping curve. So this curve kind of like goes up in that direction and then kind of hits there, and then it changes directions. Can you probably see that, right? So if I were to click here, drag that out, hold the Control or Command key and click this point and drag that out, you can see I've taken care of this whole sweep of the back end of the car with that one point. So this is, a lot of people think this tool takes a long time, but it really doesn't, because you can take care of large areas like that relatively quickly. Not only that, but it's a very nice clean line that we're going to get out of this. Okay, let's hold Alt or Option, bring this point up. Okay, and now I'm going to click here and drag there again. Hold Control or Command, and there we go. So we just took care of all that. Okay, let's drag this up there and click on there, because we've got another kind of like bump up there as well. Now I'm going to see if I can take care of this whole curve, this whole sweep right there. So I'm going to click here, hold the Control or the Command key, and just pull this point around until it actually starts to look like it needs to. Alright, and I'm going to move this one in a little bit. Here we go. Again, holding Control or Command. Alright, and pull that back up that way. Great. So now we're going to come up this way here, and I'm going to stop right about here. Hold again, Control or Command. Alright, and you can see this one, it tried to keep my curve tangent. So I'm going to hold the Alt or the Option key now and bring this point back up that way. So it's not trying to go tangent to this curve, it's just going to allow me to tangent or continuous. I'm not sure if I'm using the correct math term here, but you get the idea. Alright, now let's see if I can create a huge sweeping curve that's going to take care of the majority of this. I'm going to click here. Again, our goal is to create as little of these points as possible, right? So if I can take care of like a huge portion of this car with one curve, I'm guaranteed that that curve is going to be really, really nice. Alright, and it looks like I'm able to take care of most of it. The car does kind of like come in a little bit, so I'm going to kind of calculate for that. This part where you can see the angle of it comes in, but I can control this other side of the curve too. So if I hold Control or Command right here, I can control this side of the curve too. So if I need to make a complex curve, I can use both points. So I can pull this down a little bit, and then this one I'm going to hold Control or Command, and then pull this back out. There we go. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to see what's going on because our pen paths are just this gray color. Alright, I'm going to bring this right to here because it does look like we've got a slight change in direction there. There we go. Okay, now let's hold Alt or Option for this change in direction, kind of bring it up that way. And I'm going to see if I can get pretty much all the way to here. There we go. Now you'll see a common problem that just happened. I just clicked over there, but it started creating a new path, right? So what I need to do is go to my old path. I'm going to find where my old path ended and hover over it, and we'll see a little square with two little sides sticking out of that. And that's basically the icon for, you know, continue along the same path. So we're going to click on that path, and now as I create another path, it's going to make sure we continue along that same path. So I'm going to click right about here. Again, hold Control or Command. Alright, let's bring this out here, and then so some of these shapes, you know, may look a little bit more simple than they are. So if we're cutting off a tiny bit, generally I think we're going to be okay with that. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom in again, and now we want to take care of this little point here. So we've got it. I know it's already going to be coming down that direction, so I'm going to click here. Oh, let's make sure to go ahead and click on this point, that little hat sign. There we go. And we're going to drag it out in that direction. Hold down again Control or Command and kind of move it out until it fits perfectly. There we go. So this is so nice with the pen tool because I can change any of these points at basically any time. Even, you know, back to my original points, I can change those as well. So we're really not limited as to, like, you know, getting this right on the first time. You can continue to change this over and over and over again. Alright, let's go ahead and make sure that connects. Click there, hold Alt or Option to, like, bring it back this way. Okay, we've got a sharp point, so I'm going to create like one of these points on either side of this, you know, kind of sharp radius there. And we're going to click and drag out that way. Alt or Option, click down here. Let's just zoom out, and right about there. So at this point you may be saying, like, why don't we just use like the magnetic lasso tool or something like that? You know, like, why are you taking so long to do this? Okay, the answer is this is by far the best way to select out anything in Photoshop that has a hard edge, just like this. Magnetic lasso tool, the regular lasso tool, any tool like that, they are all going to fall short of the pen tool. The selections that you'll get from the pen tool are cleaner and a lot more usable. So in the commercial industry, you know, people like product photographers and things like that, they are using the pen tool quite a bit to cut objects out from the background and clean up selections and things like that. So it does seem like, you know, it does take a little bit longer than using like the magnetic lasso tool or the magic wand tool, but the end product is much, much better. So this is a much more professional tool than, alright, looks like this comes out as well. This is a much more professional tool. It's used by professionals more often. You don't have to pay extra for it. It's just, you just have to learn how to do it, which is what we're doing right now. Alright, there we go. Let's go ahead and bring this down here. Okay. Let's make sure that connects there. Come back to here. And if you want to minus a point out, like, I don't think this point is necessary. I'm not holding down Control or Shift or anything like that. I'm going to just hover right over the point and click on it, and it's going to automatically delete that point. If I need to add a point at any time, all I have to do is, this is going funky. So let's hold that, remember that command we used earlier to reset the curves? I'm going to hold Alt or Option, and it's going to bring up this upside down V, and I'm going to click on that, and then I can kind of rework the curvature for that point. So if that ever happens, like if a tool is ever just going a little bit weird on you, that's your best option, is just hold Alt or Option. Well, the pen tool specifically, it's not going to work the same on every single tool in Photoshop, but in this one it will. Hold Alt or Option, and you can just kind of like click right here on the point and redefine how the actual point will work. There we go. So I'm going to click on here and redefine this one as well. There we go. So I was able to trace right around there and give it a little bit of a black edge too. So other tools you wouldn't be able to get this black edge because they would obviously not know that you wanted a little bit of a edge around that point. That's something you have to control. Alright, very nice. So let's go ahead and make sure we're joining with our original point. We're going to click and drag right down there. Now keep in mind, this is a relatively complicated thing we're cutting out here, right? This is, you know, it's a car, and we're doing a pretty good job selecting it out too. And as with everything, the proof is going to come when we actually do select this out from its background. You'll see that the difference this makes over using other methods. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a tricky area because I can't really see what's going on here with the tire. It's just basically black. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get it pretty close here, and then after we cut out this car from the background, I plan on just filling in this bottom area with black anyway, so it should make it look a little bit more real. If not, I would probably just bring the tire up like that to make it, you know, add a little bit of style there. Alright, now here on the bottom, it looks like I can take care of this whole bottom area with just one point. So I'm going to hold Control or Command, and we're going to click right there and kind of bring this out there. So look at that. That entire area, super nice clean selection with just one point. Hold Alt or Option, we're going to bring this up there. And there we go. Connect back to our original point. And there we are. Okay, so now that we've basically selected out our car, you know what? I decided I don't like this area here. I'm going to just click over it. I'm going to click the minus sign, and I'm going to hit the minus sign on that one as well. And then I'm going to hold Alt or Option on these couple points right there, and we're just going to do something. Okay, let's figure it out. I don't know. We're going to now click this point here, and if you click on an existing point, it's going to minus it out. If you click where there is no point, it's going to add a point. So basically clicking on this, and we're going to hold Alt or Option, and let's kind of figure out how we want this to look. Maybe we just want this to go straight across, or maybe we want it to go up like that. Alright, let's just pretend that it goes straight across. I'm going to fill this with black anyway, but this gives you a good option of like, okay, cool. You can just kind of, you know, do whatever you want. Okay, so now that we've selected out we've created a path all around the car. Let's go click on our path. Just call this Aventador, and we're just going to make this into a selection. So I'm going to right click on there, and we're going to say Make Selection. I don't need to feather the radius at all. We're going to say OK. And now we have a perfect selection around our car. So with our perfect selection, we can go ahead and just click on this Layer Mask button, and we've got our car perfectly selected. And I mean perfect. Like, it's every single line, every single curve. It's really, really nice and beautiful here. Okay? So if we wanted to create, let's just say we wanted to create a new layer underneath this. I'm going to hit Shift Delete here and fill this with black. There we go. Now we have our car on a perfect clean background. So again, I'm going to shift click on this so you can see there's the before and the after. It is the perfect way to create a selection. You can even, I'm going to create a new layer under here. We can use our gradient tool, and I'm going to hit white. So we're going to create like a white gradient from the top to the bottom. There we go. Yeah, let's make it a little bit less visible so we get like a nice gray or something like that. So you can see all that is happening underneath the car itself. Alright, and that is how we use the pen tool. So you can see we've spent a bit of time actually like cutting our car out. Let's just zoom in because I'm proud of that, and I want you guys to see how nice of a job that is. Like, all these lines are super clean. And imagine if you try to use the, you know, quick selection tool or the magic wand tool or the magnetic lasso. Your large sweeping curves like this would look nothing like that. Those are really, really nice, clean curves that only the pen tool can get. Beautiful. Alright, and then once you're done with your pen path, all you have to do is turn it into a selection, load that selection on a layer mask, and you are cut out from your background and ready to do whatever it is that you want. Now we're on a white background. Right on. Guys, thank you so much for watching this pen tool tutorial. I hope it helps out, and now you guys have a good grasp on using the pen tool as well as when you would use this. Alright, thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.